Up first tonight, a local couple hired a psychologist to help their 13-year-old son, but instead, he raped him.
They believed he would never work as a therapist again, but they were wrong. The 7 Action News investigators have uncovered dozens of cases of healthcare workers convicted of sex crimes and a system that makes it possible for them to treat patients again.
Investigator Heather Catallo has the shocking details tonight.
We have reviewed hundreds of records, and what we found is downright scary. Dozens of health professionals convicted of a sex crime who can or did get their professional license reinstated. There is proposed legislation to fix this, but victims say it doesn't go far enough to protect the public.
Doctors Julian Gordon, Donald Quinn, and Matthew Berman have a lot in common. They are all convicted sex offenders. They all had their professional licenses suspended by the state, and they all got their licenses back and are working again.
It makes no sense at all.
This man, who asked us to protect his identity, was 13 when his parents sent him to Dr. Gordon. Struggling in school, the once respected psychologist was supposed to help. But instead, court records show Dr. Gordon made his life far worse, molesting the boy for months and raping him.
Nobody should ever have to go through it.
Now a man and U.S. Marine, he says it's not his tour in Iraq that haunts him. It's what Dr. Gordon did to him when he was a boy.
I feel like he should still be being punished for the rest of his life because I am. You know, I have to think about it every day of my life.
A jury convicted Dr. Gordon of 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct. He went to prison for 13 years, and the state revoked the psychologist's license. The boy's family believed Gordon would never work again as a therapist. But 18 months after Dr. Gordon was released from prison, the state reinstated his license to practice. That's Gordon heading to work at a methadone clinic in Detroit, where he counsels patients.
I didn't even know there was a chance he could get his license back.
So how did Dr. Gordon's victim learn that the psychologist had gotten his license back and was working again? The state didn't tell him. Sadly, we had to.
It just blew my mind. It's just like something I thought was never allowed to happen.
And it didn't just happen in Dr. Gordon's case. We found 44 convicted sex offenders who all had their licenses reinstated or could get them back. Ahead, 2 more shocking cases, and I've discovered one of those doctors may have broken the law again.
Have you told the state that this is where you're working? It's not on the sex offender registry.
The rest of my investigation is coming up.
Healthcare workers convicted of sexually assaulting their patients and then back on the job. We just showed you the case of a psychologist who raped his 13-year-old patient and is working again. We were stunned to discover 44 cases in all, and one of those doctors may have broken the law again.
7 Action News investigator Heather Catallo takes a deep look at 2 more shocking cases and answers the question, how could this have happened?
According to court records and police reports, Dr. Donald Quinn is a dentist who drugged, sexually assaulted, and beat a woman. She asked us to protect her identity. She testified anonymously in 2011 before legislators working on a bill to stop health professionals like Quinn from practicing.
I do not remember what about the assault. He was totally drugged.
But she didn't have to remember. Police records show Dr. Quinn videotaped some of the assaults. Too fragile to testify, the patient agreed to a plea deal. Dr. Quinn was convicted of 2 counts of criminal sexual conduct and 3 other felonies. He spent a year in jail and his license was suspended. But last year, Quinn's dental license was reinstated.
I have been trying to testify now. After 2000 years in prison, I do worry a great deal about unprotected patients who are dependent on them.
According to the sex offender registry, Dr. Quinn lists 3 work addresses, but we did not find the dentist working at any of those locations. We found him here instead.
We'd like to talk to you about why you got your license back after a sex crime conviction. Can we talk to you for a minute?
A dentist who said he hired Dr. Quinn at Southfield Dental Care told us Quinn has been working there for 9 months. The man also said Quinn has been doing a good job. But when I pointed out it's a felony for sex offenders like Quinn to fail to tell the state where they're working, he said, "What's the big deal?"
I really have nothing to say.
Last month, Senators Rick Jones and Tanya Shootmaker introduced a new bill that would permanently revoke the license of any health professional convicted of a sex crime.
It's one of the worst crimes you can commit on somebody other than murder. For somebody to get their license back after they've attacked a patient is outrageous.
But the proposed law won't do anything to stop Dr. Gordon or Dr. Quinn from practicing. Legal experts say Michigan law prevents legislation like this from being applied retroactively because it would violate existing licensees' rights.
I can't create a law that goes ex post facto and goes back in history and says, you did this 5 years ago, so now we're going to give you this penalty. But those records are there. And if there is any new infraction, the boards will be able to review past behavior.
When you violate your patient's trust, I think that's when you forfeit your right to use whatever medical talents you have.
Joanne Naylor testified against her former eye doctor, Matthew Berman. A jury convicted Dr. Berman in 2008 of fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct, landing him on probation for 5 years. His license was briefly suspended. This is Dr. Berman back to work at one of his 3 Metro Detroit offices. He refused an interview with 7 Action News, but when we asked him about the 3 female patients who said he touched them inappropriately, he said they made it up.
I do not think that he should be allowed to practice.
So how do healthcare workers convicted of sex crimes get their licenses back? A board comprised of licensed workers from their field reviews their case. If the board denies reinstatement, the health worker can appeal to an administrative judge at a hearing, but the board has to okay the judge's ruling. Board meetings and hearings are public, but unlike parole boards, the state does not tell the victims about the hearings. According to state records, at his hearing, Dr. Julian Gordon admitted to harming the 13-year-old as well as another boy who testified against him at trial. This is from Gordon's statement to the board that reinstated his license.
After years of treatment and contemplation, I feel I understand enough about my offense cycle and deviancy to successfully manage myself and prevent relapse.
I believe he's saying what he has to say to get what he wants to get. I believe his only way to make up for anything is to move on, get away from this field and find something different.
But Dr. Gordon has no intention of leaving the counseling field. Gordon would not talk to us on camera, although he did say he's committed to only working with adults. Meanwhile, the new legislation to revoke a medical license permanently passed the Senate, and right now it's pending approval in the House. I'm Heather Catallo, 7 Action News.
Oh, they are licensed health professionals who are supposed to help you. But the 7 Action News investigators have uncovered dozens of cases of doctors, nurses, and others convicted of sex crimes, and a system that makes it possible for them to treat patients again.
Investigator Heather Catallo is here now following up on why these health workers have been allowed to get their professional licenses back. Heather.
Well, legislation is in the works to stop future health professionals convicted of a sex crime from keeping their licenses. But the proposed law only applies if the victim of an assault is a patient. And that has some victims saying it doesn't go far enough to protect the public.
The 7 Action News investigators reviewed hundreds of state licenses for a dozen different health professions. We found 44 convicted sex offenders. They have all had their license reinstated, or they could get it back.
I do not think that he should be allowed to practice.
Joanne Naylor testified against her former eye doctor, Matthew Berman. A jury convicted Dr. Berman in 2008 of fourth-degree criminal sexual conduct, landing him on probation for 5 years. His license was briefly suspended. This is Dr. Berman back to work at one of his 3 Metro Detroit offices. Dr. Berman refused an interview with 7 Action News, but when we asked him about the 3 female patients who said he touched them inappropriately, Dr. Berman told us they made it up. Proposed legislation is in the works that would permanently revoke the license of any health professional convicted of a sex crime, but it would only apply when the healthcare worker victimizes a patient.
You violate your patient's trust. I think that's when you forfeit your right to use whatever medical talents you have.
Naylor believes the proposed law should also apply when the victim is not a patient. State Senator Rick Jones, who co-sponsored the bill with Senator Tanya Shootmaker, agrees.
Why just a patient? Why not anybody?
That is what I've been able to get past. If it were up to me, if you were convicted of sexual assault, you would have no license, no matter who the victim was. In politics, sometimes you have to go for the compromise. And this is what I've been able to get past, and I think this is a start.
7 Action News uncovered several cases where the victim of a sex crime was not the doctor's patient. Court and state records show Alberto Cesar Antonini was an MD who was convicted of child sexually abusive material activity. His license was suspended in 2009, but he can apply to get it back. According to court records, Ross David Miller was a licensed medical doctor convicted of attempted criminal sexual conduct for molesting a relative. The state suspended his license in 2010 and then revoked it, but he also could apply to get it back. And Robert Joseph Moore is a licensed chiropractor who was convicted of attempted 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct, according to State Licensing Bureau records. 3 women say he fondled them during job interviews. The state suspended Moore's license and later put him on probation in 2012. He has a limited license, but can apply to have it fully restored.
I'm willing to make it tougher. If we go through this and it still isn't tough enough, we're going to be right back here with some new bills.
The bill was approved in the Senate and is waiting for a vote in the House. The American Civil Liberties Union of Michigan has opposed similar legislation in the past, but is not taking a position on this bill. The Michigan State Medical Society did vote to support it. When we asked them if they would also support one that applied to non-patients, they would not tell us. So we're going to be keeping a very close eye on this legislation, and we'll make sure to follow up on this.
Great. Thank you, Heather.
Good work, Heather.
Yeah.
Well, you learned about him from a recent 7 Action News investigation about convicted sex offenders who are still working as doctors and dentists. Well, now one of those health workers is behind bars thanks to our investigation.
Our investigator, Heather Cataldo, joins us now. Heather, it looks like your story caught the attention of police.
That's right. Convicted sex offenders are required to report both their home and their work addresses to their local police departments. We found Dr. Donald Quinn working at a dental office that was not listed on the registry. So over the weekend, he was arrested and charged with a felony.
We'd like to talk to you about why you got your license back after a sex crime conviction. Can we talk to you for a minute?
Police arrested Dr. Donald Quinn on Friday at Southfield Dental Care, PC.
Have you told the state that this is where you're working? It's not on the sex offender registry.
Prosecutors charged Quinn with failing to register his work address after we tracked him to this dental office. At first, we tried finding him at 3 work addresses that he had given to police. We were trying to talk to Dr. Quinn about his criminal history and how the state allowed him to get his dental license back.
I really have nothing to say.
Dr. Quinn was one of the 44 convicted sex offenders that we found who had either gotten their health care licenses reinstated or who could get their licenses back. Court records and police reports showed that Dr. Quinn sexually assaulted and beat a patient in 2001. He was charged with 10 felonies, but was convicted of 2 counts of second-degree criminal sexual conduct, 2 drug charges, and a weapons charge as part of a plea deal. Quinn was locked up for a year in jail and his dental license was suspended. But state licensing records obtained by 7 Action News show that his license was fully restored last year. A man who said he hired Dr. Quinn told us the dentist was doing a good job and that he'd been working there for 9 months. Sources tell 7 Action News that Quinn did not update his work address with his local police department until the day after we found him at the dental office.
Dr. Quinn has already bonded out of jail, but if he's convicted, he could do some prison time. Failing to register as a sex offender is a 4-year felony.
A bigger concern is that he's practicing still, I think, as a practicing dentist. But what does this arrest do to his ability to keep practicing?
Well, as we reported last week, there is new legislation that's making its way through Lansing that would automatically revoke the medical license of anyone convicted of sexually assaulting a patient. We have reached out to several state agencies to find out what this kind of arrest will do for a dentist like Quinn, who only recently got his license back. When those folks get back to us, of course, we'll let you know. So we're checking on that right now.
Great work, Heather. Thanks.
Absolutely.